Part 3. Parenting Without Permission Slips. For years, my refrigerator was a command center. It wore layers of paper like armor. The family calendar, appointment reminders, sports schedules, home care responsibilities, all held up by a jumble of magnets shaped like apples, souvenir, lighthouses, and faded vacation photos. The fridge told the story of my life. The reminder cards from the doctor and the dentist. The colored calendars marked all of our important events. The Sharpie notes reminded me of my daily routines and grocery lists. It was messy, chaotic, and sometimes a little overwhelming, but it gave me purpose. It made me feel like I was the hub of something important. And then one day, it was nearly bare. I remember opening the fridge after my youngest had left for college and being startled by the clean surface. The papers were gone, the magnets stood lonely, holding nothing at all. No one was waving a paper in my face at 7 a.m. No one was muttering about a late fee because I'd forgotten to sign. There was just nothing. It felt strange, unsettling, like waking up in someone else's house. For the first time in decades, no one needed me to remember, to manage, to fix. The calendar squares held my appointments. The Sharpie was dry, and the house quiet. At first I thought I would celebrate with relief, and in some ways I did. No more scrambling to find exact change for a field trip. No more frantic mornings where the printer jammed just as someone remembered they needed a signed permission slip. No more texts asking me to drop off lunch or a forgotten item. But the absence of all of these tiny demands left a gap that I didn't expect. For so long, those details defined my days. They gave me rhythm. They gave me routine. They told me who I was. Without them, I felt strangely untethered, as though I had been fired from the only job I'd ever known. Parenting is funny like that. We spend years dreaming of freedom, of not having to sign forms, pack lunches, or juggle schedules. And then, when it finally arrives, we find ourselves missing the very things we once wished away. I find myself wandering through the grocery store, unsure of what to buy. Without snacks or school supplies on the list, I don't know where to start. Dinners for two felt odd after decades of cooking for a crowd. I'd pack leftovers into the fridge and know that they would likely get tossed next week. One evening I sat down with my planner, a tool that had once been crammed full of appointments, games, and school obligations. Page after page was blank. It should have felt like freedom. Instead, it felt like staring into a void. I don't think I'm the only one who struggled with this. Parents often joke about being chauffeurs, chefs, and secretaries for their kids. But the truth is, those roles weave themselves into our identities. We become addicted to being needed. So when the day comes that no one shouts from the hallway, "Mom, don't forget to sign my paper," we feel the loss like a phantom limb. We grieve the small things even more than the big ones. What I eventually realized, though, is that the empty fridge and the blank calendar were not punishments. They were invitations to fill the space with something new. At first, I started small. I replaced one of the empty fridge spaces with a postcard from a trip I'd always wanted to take. I filled one empty calendar square with a coffee date with a friend. I started planning a trip for me and my husband. I scheduled a day at the spa. Slowly, I learned to give myself permission. Permission to explore, to rest, to create, to dream. I didn't need my children's schedule to validate my days. I could validate them myself. Of course, it wasn't instant or easy. There were still moments of aching, like the first August morning when I realized I didn't need to stock up on pencils, folders, or backpacks. Or when I counted the days until fall break. Those moments stung. They reminded me of how much my life had been tied to permission slips and school supplies. But they also nudged me forward, gently but firmly, into a new season. One Saturday, as I sat in a quiet kitchen, I realized something profound. I had spent years giving my children permission to go on field trips, to go to camp, to try new things. And now it's my turn. I had to give myself permission. Permission to travel, permission to say yes to hobbies I'd put off, permission to say no to things that drained me, permission to reimagine what my days could look like without the constant pull of parenting tasks. Looking back, I see the empty fridge and the calendar not as symbols of loss, but of possibility. They were blank canvases waiting for me to pick up the brush. My children no longer needed me to sign their slips, but I still needed to sign something, my own permission slip to live.